Well, cool. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and we will get going here. Um, let's see here. Very cool. Let's see if I can move this over here so I'm looking somewhat in your general direction. All right, so today's workshop, I've kind of entitled it Our Approach to Producing Engaging Training Videos. And there's a little bit of a caveat with that, which I'm going to get into here in just a moment. But to kick us off, why don't we start with the video and see what happens? So this is a little demo video that I put together. I'm sorry, I apologize. It's a little old. I was going to update it for you guys, but I ran out of time. So you'll just have to go with this. A couple years old, but enjoy. All right. So there's my contact information right there. You can also see it here. So I'm Andrew Taraskis. I am the film and media specialist here at WGR. So basically, if you've seen any of the video productions that WGR has done over the last 10 years or so, I've kind of had a hand in most, if not all of those. So what I do is, in film industry terms, you might have seen this like in the credits of a movie. I'm the producer. So what is a producer, a film producer? Well, it's somebody that actually gets a movie made. So whatever video that you need to work on, whether it's here at WGR, an internal video that we produce, like the Stormwater Awareness Week videos. Basically, a client will come to me with an idea and say, I need this to get done. And it's my job to take that idea and get it done, to produce the movie. So film producers are kind of a unique breed, as you could see from the quote over there about Walt Disney. A lot of what we do is driven for our passion for making movies, right? It's not about making money, it's about making movies. And money is useful because it helps us to make more movies. All right, so my contact information is there. I really like talking on the phone, so feel free to give me a call. Now, I want to give a disclaimer because we're talking about, I want to make sure I'm sharing the right screen. I am sharing the right screen. Okay, we're talking about the process for producing videos. Now, I obviously am really only familiar with our process for producing videos at WGR. So I'm going to explain how we go about producing videos. Now, this is Stormwater Awareness Week, and we're limited to, 5 minutes of self-promotion. So how I'm going to go about this is just explain the way that we do it. But a lot of the concepts that we're going to talk about today are applicable across the board, no matter who you're working with. And a lot of these concepts that I'm sharing, we've arrived at over years of trial and error. So, I really think that, especially when you're talking about producing videos for the stormwater industry, there's some things in here that are really important to make sure that as you're going through the video production process, that it's a smooth process, that you minimize any budget overruns or, sometimes schedules can get out of control. And we've really worked in a lot of checks and balances into this process to make sure that the production process is as smooth as possible. Okay, so there's the disclaimer. Now, let's get on to the fun stuff here. At WGR, we are really passionate about making boring topics interesting. Let's face it, a lot of what, in the stormwater industry, a lot of the topics that we have to turn into videos is inherently boring, whether it is regulations, whether it is product videos, training videos. I do a lot of training videos. It's a lot of content. It's a lot of regulatory content. There's not really too many ways to, make it interesting just from a content perspective. So a lot of what gets me excited about the job and us at WGR excited is, how do we approach this boring content in a way that's interesting? And so, as you have seen in some of our videos that we've done some pretty radical things. Now, one of the things about approaching, content in a radical way is it's something that attracts clients to us individually, because it's unique, right? It makes people interested about our video, but it involves something called creative risks, which also can actually scare clients off. And I want to talk about creative risk when it comes to producing videos. When you're talking about videos or anything creative, what is creative risk? Well, one of the things that I've found when it comes to producing videos is people really respond to things that are new, and they lose interest in things that they've seen before. And I'm sure everyone here has made fun of what we call the talking head videos, right? Where it's basically just a head and shoulders shot of somebody talking over a PowerPoint or something like that. Well, okay, back in the 1920s, a talking head was a fascinating and captivating style. Nobody had ever heard somebody talk before. It was pretty cool to see a moving picture of somebody with their lips talking, and you would, their lips were moving and you would hear the sound coming out of the speakers. And it was awesome, right? But today it's really boring. It's basically the lowest rung you can get on video production. And that kind of highlights what I'm talking about when it comes to creative risk. If you do anything over and over and over again to a certain extent, it gets boring, right? So you have to expand the boundaries. You have to try something new. If you want to get people interested in what you're presenting, you have to go somewhere new. And I believe there's no more important place to do that than with a training video that involves regulatory, boring content, because most of the time it's content that people need to learn. They need to listen to it. They need to understand the concepts that are being presented. But if it's done in a boring way, then what is the purpose of even doing a video? Because people are just going to tune it out. They're going to get bored at their desk. You're going to spend all this money and they're not going to learn anything. Looks like we have somebody coming in. Hey, Marcia, nice to have you here. Okay, so to get people's attention, you have to take a creative risk by trying something new. What could this be? Well, you could try a risk in a new format, which I'm going to show you a clip here. We kind of did that with our Restore documentary series, which just released, when was it? About 3 months ago. You could try something new when it comes to the location. Maybe if all of your videos in the past were done with a talking head over a PowerPoint screen, just changing the location might be enough to push it in a new direction. You could try it with a new tone, maybe taking a comedic tone. We've done some videos where we've tried to put in as much dry comedy as we can without it being cheesy. It's definitely a new tone. We've also gone the complete opposite direction with other videos. If any of you remember our Stormwater Awareness Week 2016 promo video, that was a pretty heavy promo video, right? But it was new, it got people's attention. You could try something new in the theming, whether it's a creative theme you saw in our sizzle reel a couple slides ago, the coffee theme. We did a couple videos where basically the entire video revolved around coffee, but it was a stormwater video. And we use this kind of coffee theme to tie it all together and to make it visually interesting. You could also go with a very unique visual style, like that blue housekeeping theme that you also saw in our sizzle reel. Okay, so I want to show you something. This is a project that we did, just released, like I said. This is from our Restore documentary. And as the Steven Spielberg quote says right here, all good ideas start out as bad ideas. That's why it takes too long. Well, this video series actually had kind of an interesting process when it came to be. I had just come off of a television series. We went out and shot this literally the week after I wrapped on that TV series. None of us really had any idea what we were doing other than we were going to interview these people, and we hired an actor to play John Muir, who had been in the Ken Burns documentary and all this sort of stuff. And so we went out there and we filmed it, and we thought it was a really great idea. It turned out to look like a really bad idea when we were filming it. And then as we edited it, we kind of found that good idea again. And this is something completely different than anything that we've ever done. You'll probably get a feel for that as I show this to you. Okay, so let's just watch this real quick. See if it goes here.
When I first enjoyed this superb view one glowing April day from the summit of the Pacheco Pass, the Central Valley, but little trampled or plowed as yet, was one furred rich sheet of golden composite, and the luminous wall of the mountain shone in all its glory. Then it seemed to me the Sierra should be called not the Nevada or snowy range, but the range of light.
Back in 1903, President Theodore Roosevelt heard about this crazy Scotsman that was around Yosemite. He heard that he wandered around, he ate nothing but breadcrumbs and drank tea, and he had this Scottish accent, and he loved the parks and wild places. Theodore Roosevelt wanted to meet this person, so he reached out. John Muir, of course, obliged because one of John Muir's passions in life was not only exploring Yosemite, but talking to government officials about preserving wild places.
The Sierra is about 500 miles long, 70 miles wide, and from 7,000 to nearly 15,000 feet high. In general views, no mark of man is visible on it, nor anything to suggest the richness of the life it cherishes or the depth and grandeur of its sculpture. None of its magnificent forest-crowned ridges rises much above the general level to publish its wealth. No great valley or lake is seen, or river, or group of well-marked features of any kind standing out in distinct pictures. Even the summit peaks, so clear and high in the sky, seem comparatively smooth and featureless. Nevertheless, glaciers are still at work in the shadows of the peaks, and thousands of lakes and meadows shine and bloom beneath them, and the whole range is furrowed with canyons to a depth of from 2,000 to 5,000 feet, in which once flowed majestic glaciers, and in which now flow and sing a band of beautiful rivers. The walls of these park valleys of the Yosemite kind are made up of rocks, mountains in size, partly separated from each other by narrow gorges and side canyons, and they are so sheer in front and so compactly built together on a level floor that, comprehensively seen, The parks they enclose look like immense halls or temples, lighted from above. Awful in stern majesty, types of permanence, yet associated with the beauty of the frailest and most fleeting forms. Their feet set in pine groves in gay emerald meadows, their brows in the sky, bathed in light, bathed in floods of singing water, as if into these mountain mansions nature had taken pains to gather her choicest treasures, to draw her lovers into close and confiding communion with her.
Okay, and we'll stop there. It looks like we have some more people coming in, so I'll bring those in, make sure that everything's good in our chat. And feel free, it's awkward hosting workshops on Zoom, so if anyone has any comments or questions, please unmute yourself and interrupt me and ask a question. I'm also going to give some time for questions at the end. So thank you all for being here. If you are just joining us, my name is Andrew. I'm the video production manager at WGR. So, all right, we're talking about creative risk. And okay, now when you look at this video, maybe just seeing it without any context, you might be like, okay, what's the creative risk here? But this video was supposed to be a training video. And I can't really think of too many other training videos that took an approach more akin to a narrative, almost like a narrative documentary. And WGR is not a narrative film production company. So this is way outside our wheelhouse. It's way outside anything that we had done before. And, kudos to my bosses at WGR for allowing this project to go the way that it did. So now, when it comes to creative risk, it is a risk. There's a chance that it may not work. There's a chance that people won't like it. And I think the jury is still out, when it comes to the Restore series, how helpful it is for people who are looking to get PDHs. There is some really great information in this series, and WGR is very happy with it, but we'll see if it actually works, if it actually catches on. But that's one of the risks that you run. And I think it's a necessary risk that you run when you're trying to capture people's attention. You have to push the boundaries. You have to go somewhere somewhere new. And a lot of people freak out when, you're talking about video production, because there's a tendency to play it safe. If we play it safe and produce something that we know will look good, then, we know that the video is going to perform. But actually, do you? Because if you play it safe, like we said, and produce something that everybody's already seen, you're lowering your audience retention rate a lot. Okay, my personal advice is to be creatively open-minded and swing for the fences whenever you're doing a video production. So let's move on here. Make sure, okay, cool, here we go. Let's talk about the process. And if you're just joining us, this is how I'm pitching our process. We basically, I don't know how everyone else out there in the video industry works. I only know what we do here. And this is a process that we've come about, that has evolved through a bunch of trial and error. And we've found that it works really well. So I'm going to explain this. There's some general concepts in here that I think apply to whoever you might end up working with, whether it's us or whether it's somebody else, whether it's a one-man band in a, working out of his garage, or if you're working with an LA-based production house, okay? The concepts should apply. So when we get a video job, usually it starts with a client calling me up and saying something like this: I need a video for blank about blank. Now, how I like to break this down is, first of all, let's talk about the who's it for, our target audience. This is something that a lot of clients don't really think through all the way, because there's a lot of aspects to target audience that are really important to know. We might say, okay, real world example, we need a video to train our fire department staff on how to conduct stormwater inspections. Okay, cool. That's a pretty specific target audience. But you also need to know when you're thinking through your target audience, where is this video going to play? Is it going to be a link in an email that you send out? Is it going to be in a required training course? You know, who are the people that watch it? Do they know anything about the content that you are going to be talking about in this video? Is it, you know, taking them from square one? Is it a refresher course? Do they already know all of this and they just like need to get refreshed on it? Do they already know the background to this information, even if they don't know what this video is about specifically? You know, are they already familiar with the stormwater construction permit, even if they don't know how to perform a stormwater inspection? You know, those are very specific questions that it's really helpful for clients when they are preparing, you know, to bring a video to a production company. It's important for clients to understand that information and to say, okay, we are, you know, to go back to that fire department example, we need videos that will train our fire department staff who don't know anything about the stormwater permit, how to perform stormwater inspections. Cool. Well, and that answers the second question right there about blank. The purpose of the video, what it's about, what the key takeaways are. And it's important to really narrow down and define that as well. You know, when you're talking about stormwater inspections, right? Our fire department staff video that we did. So now, okay, we know that they're fire department staff. We know they don't know anything about stormwater inspections. So we want them to know what they need to be looking for, but we also need to, you know, make sure that this video isn't a crash course on the stormwater permit, because there's a lot of things about the stormwater permit they don't need to know, and they're just going to forget. So when we're defining the purpose of this video, make sure that it covers everything that we need, but doesn't go farther than we need to. You know, they just need to know what to look for. So that's something, the more clients, when they come to me, or if you go to any other production company, the more you can tell the production company about who this video is for and what it's about, and the more specific you can be, the better you are setting yourself up for success. Okay, that's how the conversation starts with prospective clients coming to us. Now, what's the next thing to do? Well, the next thing to do would be for them to talk to us and say, okay, here's how, you know, here's what you can expect budget-wise. I'm going to get into that in a little bit. Usually there will be a contract involved about this time saying, okay, yes, let's move forward. The next step in the approach toward production is to develop what I call the creative proposal. This is, some production companies might call this the director's treatment, but basically this will be a document. It could be 1 or 2 pages. It could be, you know, 4 or 5, or maybe even a dozen pages, basically outlining, okay, here's our ideas of how the video will be presented. And I've got a couple here on the screen you can see. One at the top, it's an ongoing project that we are doing for Filtrex. And I kind of described, this is just one, I think this was a 6-page document, one of the 6 pages describing, okay, based off of our conversations, here is an idea that I think you would like. And basically I pitched, as you can see in the video, a guy standing against a white backdrop wearing the Filtrex green hard hat and a Filtrex green shirt with, you know, a clipboard and kind of this, you know, over the top personality vibe, right? And it worked well. You can kind of see peeking up there some of their printed materials that we wanted it to really fit in the same world with everything else that they were doing. So this was an idea that I pitched to them. They said, great, we love it. We actually executed, I think we're on video number 4 or 5 in this theme. So it's working really well. We followed the creative proposal really closely. Now, down on the right-hand corner, you'll see another creative proposal that I did for a different project. This one went really pushed that creative risk a lot farther. We were talking about stormwater inspections. Actually, this is the same video that we did for the fire department training staff. Now, what I thought about here was, okay, if we're doing inspections, it might be kind of fun to take kind of a creative approach. The client actually specifically requested a unique approach that they hadn't seen before because they wanted to boost audience retention. So one of the ideas that I pitched to them is, hey, well, why don't we format this almost like a Sherlock episode, where if any of you have seen Sherlock, it's got this really gritty industrial vibe, which you can kind of see in those pictures there. And then as Sherlock finds clues, it kind of breaks out and does a slow-mo thing and identifies clues, and there's writing on the screen. And in my mind, I was thinking, well, hey, great. If we go out and there's a pollution issue, we can just like slow down the video and there'd be writing on the screen and it would be really cool and people would get the reference to Sherlock. All right, great. I think this was pushing it a little bit too far for the client. We ended up going a different direction, which is fine. But that's the purpose of the creative approach proposal, to nail down how the production company is going to creatively approach the video before actually real money is wasted pursuing any creative approach that won't, eventually work out. Okay, so once we've decided with the client on a way to creatively approach the video, now it's time to go into the development process. And there's actually basically 5 distinct phases of production: development, pre-production, production, post-production, and delivery. And I guess you could probably lump the creative proposal inside the development phase, because we're really developing the idea, we're developing the video. And here's a script from a project that I did recently. This is what happens in the development phase. This is when we take that, I need a video about blank for blank, and we say, okay, well, let's execute it. Let's get it down on paper. Let's figure out what this video is actually going to be. We have our creative approach. Let's turn that into a video. All right, now we're going to get into, when we're talking about scripting, this is one of those areas in production that I really want to emphasize. The script is the most important part of the film or video production process. The absolute most important part. You will find when you get a script from us, I can't speak for any other production company, they should be doing it this way because we're using industry standard scripting techniques. But when you get a script from us, you will find that the script outlines the content of the video. It outlines all of the dialogue, word for word, of what will be said. It outlines any narration. It describes the locations. It describes what happens in the scenes. If anybody is moving around or if we see anything, it describes that. It describes the sound that we hear, and it even describes the music. Some other stuff, if you can see on the screen, there's actually that first half of that page is animation. So it describes the graphics and what the graphics are going to look like. The script really is the video in its, I guess, pre-birth phase, right? In its pre-birth form. You have to become familiar with the script and really, use the script to help you visualize the video before you get out on production, because production is a very expensive process and you don't want to get out in production before you know what you're doing. So as we say around WGR, you develop the script, you approve the script, and you execute the script. The script is there to be followed. You don't approve the script and then throw the script out the window and then shoot whatever you want when you get out on the field. That's how important this thing is. Okay, let's move on. We've got the script. We've got the script approved. It's been written. It's been passed on to whoever needs to approve the script with the client. All right, great. We're ready to move forward into the next phase, pre-production. Now, this is where we find the locations. We nail down who is going to be cast in the film, our actors, our on-camera host, whoever that might be. And we're going to nail down the production design. And you can see here on the video or on your screen here, I've got a mood board. This would be over on the far left. And this is the production design. You know, how is the video going to look? This was for a project that we did for Casca, where we have, you know, I kind of pitched a monochromatic approach. You can see some example images there. We ended up going with the blue and yellow approach, which is the janitor closet thing you saw in our sizzle reel. So we also did a casting call for the Casca videos as well. I highly recommend for our videos that our clients work with professional actors. It's just going to be a much smoother process. Professional actors they're professional for a reason. They have a good delivery. They know how to perform on camera. They know how to phrase their sentences in a way that the audience can understand. If anybody has seen a video with a non-professional actor, you know what I mean. It's easier to watch when somebody knows, this sounds mean, but when somebody knows how to speak properly, you know, it's easier for the audience to retain information. Now, another important part of pre-production, especially with videos in the environmental industry, is location scouting. I actually pulled a picture from a recent location scout that we did. Before we went out to the location, I hopped on Google Earth to look at where it was, so I knew where to go and where to park and that sort of thing. And I saw something interesting. This was a stormwater video, and looking at, this appears to be a wash rack. You can kind of see here, I don't know if you guys can see my mouse, but this looks to be a wash rack, but I also saw this water slick going down here to what looks to be a storm drain. And this was a concern that I actually brought up with the client, and it was deemed to not be a big issue because apparently they never did that. They were a very clean yard. Well, we actually went out on location to go film that day, and lo and behold, we pull up, we're setting up our camera, and I look over, and one of the employees is washing their truck outside of the wash rack, and all the water is flowing to the storm drain, just as you saw on Google Earth. So when you're producing a video for regulatory purposes or for guidance purposes, it's important that your locations set a good example. You really don't want to be blindsided by a pollution issue when you go out in the field. So in pre-production, it's really important that you do a good job scouting your location and make sure that it's going to work for the video, that you're not going to run into any problems out there. And basically that everyone approves of the locations just as much as they approve of the script. All right, so we've got the script developed, we've got our location secured, we've got our cast picked out, we've got our production design all worked out. All right, now we're getting into the fun stuff, production. This is when we actually get out the cameras and record the training video. Okay, well, by the time you get to production, that script had better be approved. I cannot stress how important this is. And it seems like no matter how many times that we stress this, so many of our clients neglect that process of getting the script approved. And we end up running into a lot of trouble when we get out on location. You know, there have been times where we have literally thrown the entire script out the window because we get out on location and realize that none of this fits the location. This was a problem that should have been addressed in development when the script was being written. You know, film production, as we will discuss it a little bit when we get to the budget slide, film production is a very expensive process. Just as you wouldn't go and build a house without blueprints, you can't go out and shoot a video without a script and expect good results. So, all right, our script is approved. What does a shoot day typically look like? Well, for us, a shoot day is typically long. It involves a lot of hard work. It involves a lot of standing around. For some people, for other people, it's running around like chickens with their head cut off. Film production is an industry like no other. Most of our videos are 10-hour shoot days. Depending on what you're doing, it might be 8 hours. It could be 12 hours. Because because you want to minimize how many times you have to mobilize your crew and get out there, it's best to do it in as few days as possible, which leads to longer days. We try really hard not to go over 10-hour days with WGR, but there have been occasional 12-hour days. I think we've even had some 14-hour days, which are not pleasant. So what are some typical things that slow down the filming process? Probably the biggest thing that slows down the filming process in our experience is unskilled actors. Unskilled actors, it takes more takes to go through the script and to get a clean take. Unskilled actors just have a tendency to not be able to memorize their lines, which I get it. That's why acting is a profession. There's actual skills that are involved in acting. So another thing that slows down the filming process is unexpected problems with the location, like that wash rack issue I described. If you get out on the location, you realize, well, we can't shoot in 3 out of the 4 places that we wanted to shoot because, there is dirt all over the parking lot. They just had a delivery of fill dirt and there's track out everywhere and there's mud going down the storm drain. We can't shoot over there because we can't let that live on the internet forever. Somebody's going to find that. We're going to get sued. It'll be a huge mess. That basically cripples your film production if you have something like that crop up. And believe it or not, we get that on almost every production we do. That happens on some level, no matter how well prepared you are. So it's best to minimize that as much as possible. You can also have other things pop up with the location, sound issues. If you get out there and you realize, well, the neighbor is installing a new sewer line and they've got a jackhammer crew out there, that basically will ruin your film shoot day as well. Another thing that slows down the filming process, again, underlining how important it is to have an approved script, is when we get out there and the client is listening to the actor deliver her lines, and the client will say something like, well, actually, now that I think about it, we should phrase it this way. And we start changing the script on the fly. Okay. This is another recipe for disaster, because now, we're doing it on the spur of the moment. There's stress involved. We're literally burning money as we're trying to change the video. It almost never turns out good. Just another reason, make sure you approve that script before you get to production. Okay, so we've gone through production. Hopefully our clients are well prepared. We're shooting for as few days as possible. We have a professional actor. We vetted the locations. Maybe we ran into a few problems, but we got our days. Everything is in the can, as they say in the film industry. We got it all. We're on schedule. We're on budget. Everything's good. Let's move on to the next phase, post-production. Now, usually what comes hand in hand with our clients say, well, now that I think about it, let's change this line. There's another phrase that I hear people say all the time. Well, we'll fix it in post. We'll fix it in editing, right? We can edit that out. Well, yes and no. There are some things you can do in post-production and some things you can't. Post-production is basically when we take all that footage and all that audio that we recorded out in the field and we assemble it into a video. And there are some things that you can do in post-production. You can cut things out. You can change the order of the video. You can change or redo the graphics or the animation of the video. You can change the music. Now, depending on how much work that involves, any of those things, you could get into some budget trouble. But basically, those are all things that can be pretty easily done. Now, when you get to post-production, there are some things that can't be fixed. And some of these things sound very obvious, but you'd be surprised how many times I have clients asking me to change what actors are saying in the video. I can't change that. If that's what was recorded out in the field, the only way to change that is to get the camera back out, to get the actor back out, and to go out and shoot that scene again. And I don't have to say it, that's expensive to do. I also can't change an actor's performance if they, stumble over a line, if they mispronounce a word, if they are giving us the deer in the headlights look the entire time. I can't change that in post-production. And I mean, not just WGR, no production company can change that. We also can't add scenes which weren't filmed. I recently had a client ask me, well, can't we just like put this scene in here and describe that, well, when you're doing this, it's actually, when you're looking at this part of the inspection form, it's actually addressing this element. And the answer was no, we didn't get that out in the field. I don't have any content which says that. We would have to re-record that. So there are some things that can be fixed but are expensive. If the dialogue is terrible, we can clean up the dialogue with what's called ADR. Basically, we bring in the actor and have them re-record all the dialogue and match it to the lips in the video footage. It can be done. It's expensive and time consuming. We can reshoot scenes. If a client says, well, this is actually really important that we redo this scene. Our approach at WGR is always to be, great, we'll do it. We're happy to do it. As long as you guys are paying for it, because some of this stuff is very labor intensive. Most production companies can digitally remove things from shots. If there's something in a shot that, we didn't notice it, but in the background, there is this, maybe there's a oil can that had been tipped over and it's kind of, we don't want that to be in the video. Well, depending on what it is, we can take a look at it and digitally remove that. Again, it can be fixed. It's not going to be cheap. That involves a lot of work and quite a bit of time and expertise on our part. And for those of you that are wondering, the picture there on the right-hand side is actually our edit bay. That's actually where I'm sitting right now, except all the lights are on. So, okay. Now, let's talk about delivery. We've successfully completed development, pre-production, production, and post-production. We've got a video. Everyone's happy with it. Now comes the very fun time of, okay, great. How do we get that video? And you might hear me say something like, well, I can give it to you as an H.264 and a QuickTime MOV wrapper. What the heck does that mean? Well, basically, to put it very simply, we can give you a video file, or we can give you a YouTube or Vimeo link, or both. We can even ship it to you on a hard drive, whatever you prefer. When it comes to WGR and the delivery process, we're very flexible. So however you need the video, we can spit it out in whatever format you want, whether it's an H.264 or MP4 or whatever it might be. Probably the easiest way that I like to do delivery is to basically send our clients a private Vimeo link. And you can see it right there on the screen. There's this handy little download feature, and you can just go on there and download the video in whatever format or size that you want and save it to your computer, and you can upload it to YouTube. You can upload it to your website or whatever you want to do. It's your video after all. Okay. Well, by now, you're probably thinking something. This sounds really expensive, right? Well, it is. Video production is very expensive. And what I thought I'd do is let's talk about managing some expectations right here. You've got a video that you need to get produced. Everyone's doing videos nowadays. Your boss says, we need to produce a video. Okay, let's talk about budgets. Now, for an example 5-minute video, if you ask WGR to produce a 5-minute video for you, you will likely get a budget that looks like the one you're seeing here on the screen. And here's a rough breakdown of what a typical 5-minute video would look like. I would estimate that we would spend about 10 hours developing the script and incorporating any revisions. That includes, coming up with the initial script draft, sending it to the client, and then maybe doing 1 or 2 rounds of revisions. I usually do about 2 rounds of revisions. I would say 10 hours is a little bit on, that might actually be under budgeting that. There have been some clients that we do 3 or 4 rounds of revisions, and we might be getting up to 12, 14 hours there. You're also going to need to budget for a prep day, whether that is prepping the equipment. Sometimes that might include travel. If we're traveling to a yard over in Santa Barbara, or somewhere where it involves travel time. Now, production, let's say we go with a, good sized, but also smallish crew of 4 people. You have a director, you have a cameraman, you have a sound operator, and you have a grip, which is basically the guy that handles all the gear and helps you get the lights set up and things like that. 4 men, that's a pretty small, but very workable crew. Let's say you're shooting, you're doing pretty quick. You think we can do this in 8 hours, right? You shoot 4 hours before lunch, 4 hours after lunch, 8 hours. So that's 32 man hours. Post-production and revisions, 10 hours. Again, that might be a little on the low side. If the client has done a good job of coming to us with an already very crystallized idea of what they want in the script, and we do a good job executing that script. Let's say there's very few revisions, we get it done in 10 hours. We also have about 4 hours of production management. This would include things like that the creative approach proposal that I talked about. Maybe just some correspondence, phone calls with the client, that sort of thing. Production management. We're talking 64 man hours for a 5-minute video. And at an average rate of 95 an hour, you're looking about $6,000 for a 5-minute video. And this doesn't include travel and equipment rental and things like per diem and lodging and that sort of thing. So video production is expensive. You're also probably thinking something else about this time. I can't afford that. Okay, understandable. If you're strapped for funds, well, okay. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of insider information. This is probably worth the price of your free admission right here. I'm going to give you some insider information on how to get the most bang for your buck when it comes to video production. All right. And because I ran out of time, I didn't outline this. And also it added to the mystique by me just saying highly confidential here. So you might want to write these down. Number 1, if the client has a committee that is dedicated to getting this video produced, get rid of that committee, preferably yesterday. Decisiveness and communication are absolutely vital to a smooth production. And basically every situation where we have had a committee involved in producing a video, it has turned into an absolute disaster. Budget overruns, schedule overruns. We had one project that was 1.5 years behind schedule. It should never have been that far behind schedule. And it was primarily due to what I call death by committee. So if you have a committee involved, get rid of it if you can. Next, have your idea for your video crystallized before you bring on the production company. The more you can nail down your content and the script before bringing on the production company, the better. Believe it or not, most of our budget overruns actually happen in development and pre-production. When we're working with the client to determine what the video is going to be about and writing the script, you can quickly get into budget problems. There have been several times where I have written a 8 to 10 page script, which entails 10 to 12 hours of work with revisions. And then the client comes back and says, well, actually, we've decided to go in a different direction. Okay, that is something that the client should have decided before we even got to the script stage, because basically that was 12 work hours that got flushed down the drain. And we're now way behind budget, not to mention schedule. So the more that you can have your idea crystallized and developed before you bring the production company on, the better. Okay. Another idea is to shoot more than one video at a time. If you have, if you can produce, say, 2, 3, or 4 videos with the same feel or the same setting, then great, do that, because then you can you can avoid budget overruns by cutting down on the amount of times that you have to mobilize the crew. You know, if the entire crew is out there shooting and they can shoot 5 videos in one day, which, you know, is totally doable. We actually did that for a client. We shot 4 videos in one day. If you can do that, it's a lot cheaper and doesn't involve a whole lot less or a whole lot more effort than just doing 1 video in a day. So see if you can bundle your videos together. Also, know what you want when it comes to quality. You know, us video producers, we love quality. We love making a Hollywood production out of everything we do, right? But let's be honest, not every video that you need to make is worthy of a Hollywood production. Is your video a product install video? Well, you probably don't need a full crew to produce that video. You know, finding a one-man band is probably going to be your best bet. Now, if it's a product launch video or a commercial or maybe a video for your corporate shareholders, that's where you don't want to cut corners. You know, you're probably going to want to bring out the full crew. You're probably going to want to splurge and get a little bit higher end equipment, you know, which might set you back in equipment rental. People can tell if you go cheap on a video, but there are times where it's totally appropriate to go cheap on a video. Now, another idea when it comes to cutting costs is choose less expensive production routes. If you minimize animation and graphics, you know, the less animation your production company has to do, the cheaper it's going to be. Basically, if you can record it with a camera in the field, that's going to be your cheapest route. Don't do green screen because that involves more work in post-production. If you can shoot it for real, you know, that's a phrase that I use a lot. Let's shoot it for real. If you can shoot it for real out in the field, instead of doing green screen, you have your guy out, you know, standing next to a river or whatever, or you take him to Yosemite, or you find a really cool warehouse to shoot in. If you can get an interesting location and get it all on camera, that's always going to be cheaper than trying to do green screen or putting in a bunch of animated graphics. Also, you can ask for a discount. Most production companies, including WGR, are totally willing to work with you, especially if you're going to give them a lot of work. All right, now you also have to be careful here because production companies usually aren't hurting for work, and most are not afraid to say no. And a sure way to get a production company to say no to you and to future work is to nickel and dime them and try to get the lowest possible dollar. Like I said, producing videos is expensive, and you can't, there is a minimum level that production companies will not go below. It's just not worth the effort to do the video. And becoming a demanding client and also, you know, being somebody who's also asking for the cheapest possible rate, that's a sure way to get production companies to pass on your project. We've actually found that the most demanding clients are usually the ones who pay the least. So finally, you know, if you just have to get a video done and you don't really have budget, kind of maybe a last-ditch effort, find somebody you know who can do the video for a song. Maybe it's a friend of yours, maybe it's a relative. Ask around in your company to see if anybody knows anybody who does video. A lot of times you can find somebody who's decent at what they do, who can give you a decent video for a pretty good rate. And a lot of times, actually, those rates will actually be much better than anything that WGR can give. Now, I feel it's my duty to say that at some point you get what you pay for, but you never know. You might actually find somebody who's good at what they do. Okay, so that's about all I had to say for our approach on producing engaging training videos. I thought I'd open it up for questions. Again, here's my name and contact information. And I'll go ahead and stop the share. If anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Or you can even unmute yourself and ask me.
Well, I'll just say you did a very good presentation, Andrew.
Well, thank you. All right, it looks like Rebecca asked, what do you recommend for somebody who's just starting to make videos? Equipment, software, or resources? That might be too much of a technical question to get into right now. I would say for the purposes of the people attending this class, if you have to do a video and you don't have the budget to hire somebody like a production company, I would say the best bet is to do what I just recommended. Go find somebody you know, go find somebody's relative and say like, hey, I need you to do a video for our company. We can pay you $500. Great. That's probably your best bet. It's going to be cheaper than buying your own camera. All right, any other questions?
Was there a promo film for this year for Stormwater Awareness Week?
There is a promo video for this year, and if you guys watch it, I hope you guys enjoy it. I feel like my professional career will never recover.
Where can they find it?
I believe you can find it on the Stormwater Awareness Week homepage. There should be a video for that. I haven't actually checked. Is that where it is, Rebecca?
I'm not sure if it's up yet. I will get the link right now and put it in the chat.
Okay, very cool. Here's my email address. If anyone has any questions or anything about the video production process, we say around WGR that advice is free over coffee. So if anyone wants to treat me to coffee, I'm happy to give you any pointers. I'm happy to take a look at any video production that you're doing, to give you any guidance on potential video production companies. So yeah, we're very relational as a company. So feel free to reach out. Okay, well, I believe that's it. We are at 1:30 on the dot, so I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you all for coming. It was really a pleasure presenting. This is actually my first time in 10 years of Stormwater Awareness Week, my first time ever presenting a workshop. Usually I'm behind the camera. So I will see you all later, and take care. Enjoy the rest of the event.